here for this week's presentation, which we're very fortunate to have in Tasca with us. Things you may not know about laughter. Our capacity to laugh is a human phenomenon we take for granted, but the social sciences have found more to our ability to laugh than we may have realized. And today Ed will share with us what he knows about how we know laughter humor works for us and against us, shapers of our individual personalities. Did I write that? Anyway, you know him from his columns in the local magazines. A big open circle welcome to Ed Tasca.
Thank you, my friend. I guess that was an interesting way to
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you. I think those jokes are better than jokes I have.
Can you turn on your microphone? Oh, you need to turn on your...
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Just kidding.
I was talking about his jokes. Starts off with jokes. That's the way to start off a presentation on laughter, I suppose. The question I was asking myself is there really 40 minutes of stuff to talk about when you're considering the subject of laughter? And then I thought, maybe 40 minutes isn't enough to talk about laughter. So I was caught in between. Anyway, this presentation is that medium ground where I tried to cover the subject of laughter, and it does include humor as well. For most of us, wasn't laughter just a natural thing we do? Laughing, like coughing or sneezing or burping or... When did it get complicated? I found out. It got complicated about 60 years ago. It became a studied subjective phenomenon that apparently has more meaning in our lives than we realize. Yeah, it could be boring to try to break down something so natural and joyful that we all revere into scientific blather. So you might be thinking, hey, you could just tell a joke instead. That tells the whole story. So that's where we'll start. But see, as opposed to the original jokes you just heard, I've got a famous joke. Here it is. Two campers are walking through the woods when a huge bear suddenly appears in front of them. The bear starts walking towards them. The first guy drops his backpack, digs out a pair of sneakers, and begins to put them on. Second guy says, "What are you doing? Sneakers won't help you outrun a bear." The second guy says, "I don't need to outrun the bear, I just need to outrun you." Now, that joke is famous because a British research team did a study on what might be the funniest jokes ever told. And that was one of the winners. It was an attempt to explain what things make us laugh. But we all know it's not as simple as that. For a long time, nobody ever talked about laughter or humor or why we do it or why it comes in different colors, some affecting one person and not others. The truth is, for most of human history, the sum total of all analyses of the subject has been, hey pal, nothing like a good laugh, so you're buying the next drink. That was it. But today we have scientists who study it, seriously study it. And in that respect, it's a pretty boring subject. When you hear about all the parts of the brain that ignite and which brain chemicals are released when we let out a howl of laughter, nobody cares. It's cerebral physiology. Here, it's this. Laughter originates in the lower Rolandic operculum brain region. Well, you already knew that, right? Good. How much laughing we do, a polite smile, a chuckle, a giggle, a belly laugh, depends on how good the joke or the story is. Because when we laugh at something, our laughter and its quality, and here's the thing, the frame of mind it puts us in is all that's really important. We learned it all in second grade. Joey made cross-eyes, and we all laughed. Joey was a comic genius, made school fun. We all eventually moved on from that, but Joey knew his stuff, and he knew his audience. But it's that frame of mind I want to talk about. Today there is an official body of research for laughter. It's a socio-psychological science called gelatology. It could be a study of Italian ice cream, but it's not. This is a serious study of laughter, and it started in the 1960s. Researchers started doing what researchers always do. They dissected the subject, and they did discover something important, that there were big-time health benefits associated with laughter. According to all accounts, both scientific and anecdotal, laughter releases dopamine, increases blood flow, strengthens the heart, leads to increased optimism and better moods, increases and enhances sociality, all of which in turn boosts our immune system and our longevity. That's definitely a lot. We didn't know that. We just laughed and had another drink. This has all been going on since the first hominin slammed into a tree chasing a goose. Cracked everybody on the hunt, including the goose. And think about it, it helped prolong our species. How about that? Laughter would have been a part of our evolutionary process. But who knew you could get all of that health stuff for free? Nobody ever told you that all those sitcoms you were stuck on every Tuesday night for decades might have been adding years to your life without pills and injections or sessions. So, in honor of all that, let's look at laughter objectively. In addition to the internal health benefits, here are 7 more practical and interpersonal benefits we know about laughter. Number 1, we all know it can be infectious. But the extent of this contagion can be astounding. Robert Provine, a neuroscientist and professor of psychology and current U.S. expert on laughter, conducted years of field work to determine what actually makes us laugh. He found that people laughed about 30 times more when they were around others or watching TV together rather than alone. I'm sure you've all experienced it. It's our automatic expression of empathy, sociality, and agreeability. But we never put it or understood it in those terms. Number 2, Provine also pointed out that laughter isn't always about humor. He contends that it's more about the coziness of relationships. The cutting-edge humor straight out of Comedy Central is great, but Provine showed that people actually laugh more in casual, day-to-day conversation and interaction without the need for comic stimulus. The finding revealed in scientific terms one of the most striking things about laughter. It has an inherent social magnetism. It binds us together regardless of who we are, what race, what status, what ethnicity we hold. Number 3, Provine also unearthed a few other interesting facts about the sociality of laughter. How about this? Women laugh 126% more than men. Now we know that women are more social. We know that. We sort of take it for granted. It's a wonderful thing about women, I have to tell you. Men depend on generating laughter 80 to 90% of the time to win over a mate. It's like a social tool. I don't want to talk about other social tools, but it's an important social tool that we take for granted, or at least men take for granted, or women take for granted. And women are the biggest appreciators of laughter. How many times have you heard, how many times will you hear a woman claim that sense of humor is one of the most important traits they look for in a man? And these observations show us why. They are, for the most part, multicultural. So gender relationships depend on it. Traditional mating would be nowhere without it. By extension, the future of our species may depend on a couple of good giggles a day. I won't even mention our sex lives. 4, people tend to like people who laugh easily. Laughers seem more readily agreeable during casual differences of opinion or when discourses start to turn south or go flat. And producing laughter at work or in any group effort, according to studies, can make you more productive or seem more confident. In other words, the funnier you are, the more workplace credentials and confidence you seem to generate. How does this social magnetism work? According to psychiatrist and humor researcher Dr. Arnie Kahn, laughter with others releases oxytocin, a hormone that helps to build bridges so that others feel comfortable lowering their guard and allowing a sense of trust with others. But being, now, this of course does not suggest one should be giddy and clownish all the time. You know the guy who wants to keep telling you all the jokes he knows until you have to excuse yourself to water the cactus? You know that guy? You don't want that. But being lighthearted and approachable is a winner. 5, according to a recent Georgia study, Georgia State University study, even fake laughter can be as good or real for social appearances and your own well-being, and just as good as a put-on smile. Again, without overdoing it, and you don't want to have to look like the Joker. 6, laughter imprints good memories, the kind we all want to draw on, especially as we age. It deepens our memories with greater strength when the memory involved healthy, thigh-slapping laughter. In other words, laughter helps in the clarity and retention of memory. Apparently, a subset to this discovery is that humor and laughter it provokes also also improves memory retention in general. Again, laughing is a psychochemical thing that improves brain function in general. 7, and this is mine, laughter can be a regular reminder not to take life and yourself too seriously. That's self-explaining. And no one wants to appear humorless. The result of all this, our latest views of laughter have led to a whole new applied subscience. It's called, are you ready for this? Laugh therapy. Yes, we have laugh therapists. I don't know how people become laugh therapists or what their sessions are like. I don't know, do they tickle people? I don't know, but they are a legitimate profession. I checked on it, I did check on it. It is effectively a process of laughter appreciation and how to find and cultivate it. And to use it to downgrade stress. Steve Wilson is a laugh therapist, and he says humans are hardwired for laughter. He claims infants laugh from birth. That is, after they get smacked on the ass. Therapists like Wilson also speculate that our prehistoric ancestors laughed before they could talk, using laughter as a primitive form of communication. So it is as natural and automatic a reaction for humans as self-survival. Okay, so what makes us laugh? First, the need for compatibility. Provine argues that laughing started as just fooling around during our evolutionary development. Adults acting childishly. It became a form of calm and non-aggression, like the reflexive gesture of shaking hands or air hugging. This non-seriousness prompted compatibility as a social aim. Also, laughter is not limited to communicating funny stuff and can be triggered by other feelings such as embarrassment and other social discomforts. There are many, and they are based on personality types. There are also many people who can't hold back the urge to laugh at funerals. I've done it. As a child, I was slapped, but I've done it. It's an odd response that gelatologists still can't quite explain, except to say that people are not supposed to laugh, and the pressure of holding back this nervousness can trigger an outburst. When I was a child, nothing was funnier than when it happened in church. I'm sure some of you have experienced that. There are also people who can have a resistance to laughter, even a phobia to laughter. They have difficulty laughing spontaneously because of what it might mean or what it might reveal about them personally. I guess that's where one would go to see a laugh therapist. Or maybe just go and get some magic mushrooms. Here's what we do laugh at for its happy sensations. We laugh at the irrational, the incongruent, the unexpected, the misguided, the pretentious, and all of life's ironical experiences. Things in your mind of rationality that shouldn't happen. And the key to all of these circumstances is surprise. Aristotle said, the secret to humor is surprise. Just as a magician progresses through his trick to the big finish, the rabbit that shouldn't be in the hat. What we do find funny is vast. It can be almost anything. Men versus women and the battle of the sexes is a good example. I'll give you a couple. A wife got so mad at her husband, she packed his bags and told him to get out. As he walked through the door, she yelled, "I hope you die a long, slow, painful death." He turned around and he said, "So you want me to stay?" Here's another one. The trouble with some women is that they get excited over nothing. And then they marry him. Another one. A man put an ad in the classified. Wife wanted. Next day he received 100 letters, all saying the same thing. "You can have mine." It's an ancient and beloved subject. But healthy laughter really starts with the warm and inclusive kibitzing, shared by family and friends, that's most revered by everybody. It's just social bonding and shows of affection because of the inherent trust and closeness. This jesting and fooling around is the lifeblood of intimate relationships. We all have it, and we all love it. And there's no need for examples here. The tonal opposite of these gentle, harmless forms is that snarky sarcasm, usually some kind of mockery at another's expense. Plato called this primary humor, and I'm not sure why. Probably because scathing commentary against the elite was common during his time. And now, let's admit this. People have long enjoyed laughing at racial and ethnic jokes. This is important. They're often based on stereotypes, and they're age-old. The question is, are ethnic jokes okay, or are they always spurred by anger, meanness, and attempts to degrade? I'm guessing we've all had different experiences. Mine has been that some ethnic teasing is harmless among good and trusting friends. It's okay, as long as it's not demeaning and marginalized. I'm of Italian descent. I grew up among diverse groups of ethnic minorities, and we indulged in it constantly, sometimes for fun, sometimes not so. So I know the differences. We used it for fun, and we used it for weapons. I don't need to give you examples, but I can say, for good or ill, it will almost always continue to be with us in some form or other. So can we laugh at it? It's still with us. I don't know the answer to it, but ethnic humor will always be with us, unfortunately. I have an example here, but I won't use it. It's not bad. There are generational jokes, parental jokes, children's jokes, pet jokes, doctor jokes, lawyer jokes, on and on. naturally these will have different tones and generate different reactions from the different audiences and cultures. And of course, something is only funny if you can relate to the subject. If you're a married couple and you don't have children, children's jokes are not going to be all that funny, as an example. But the category of humor that evokes the most appreciative laughter is humor at one's own expense. Self-deprecating humor always appeals to the widest audience and creates the loudest laughter because it gently reminds all of us that flaws and failings are a part of all of us. Studies have shown that self-deprecating humor actually promotes psychological well-being for everyone, including the self-effacing purveyor of that humor. Everyone may be laughing at you, but by extension they are laughing at humanity itself. It's another way humor and its laughter binds us together. Most great and immortal humorists and comics were self-deprecating. We can all name our favorites, but there's too many. Down through history, I can name many. Rodney Dangerfield, I guess, comes to mind among many of us here. Examples for you. I could tell my parents hated me. My bath toys were a toaster and a radio. My psychiatrist told me I was crazy, and I said, I want a second opinion. He said, okay, you're ugly too. This is the kind of stuff people loved for the longest time. Unfortunately, Rodney's not here with us anymore. Self-deprecating is far more ancient and can be subtler than we thought. I have a favorite. It's by Socrates. It's definitely not Rodney Dangerfield, but it's a favorite of mine. Socrates said, by all means, marry. If you get a good wife, you'll become happy. If you get a bad one, you'll become a philosopher. I think. This leads me to a type of humor that reaches the greatest majority of us all. These are true stories. True stories have a cachet that is even more relatable than just a made-up joke. And so they are more memorable and remarkable. And no one in particular is the subject of the joke. Not a lawyer, a doctor, an ethnic group, a male, female, just anybody. It's usually a harmless trolling of human characteristics or beliefs or activities. You've all listened to a great storyteller who could make you laugh with their observations of life and life's trials. It's often the stuff we all deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's the foundation of every situation comedy. Most of these laughs set us within the situation itself and helps us see ourselves in the same patch. Here's the kicker, though. Oddly, it also makes us feel unique in some paradoxical way. We may not like some sitcoms or situations or characters, while others do. What prompts a laugh for some and not for us may puzzle us. It is one of our most complex psychological phenomena. You know, why do some laugh at some things and some situations and we don't? And so it makes each of us feel our sense of humor is distinct. How many of us, really, how many of us think we have a distinct sense of humor? I'm guessing that, yeah, I'm guessing that everybody does. It's natural. In part, this individuality, it informs us that funny does vary according to all sorts of variables. You know, nationality, culture, gender, age, social status, psychology, environment, and especially personality preferences. So don't be surprised or disappointed when nobody is laughing but you. Has that ever happened to you? It's happened to me. It happens to me all the time, in fact. That might make you feel special. Or it might make you feel crazy. Humor is unique to all of us, like so many things. And that's okay. On the other hand, what about this infectiousness of laughter that I mentioned earlier? There's this story that's historic now. In 1962, in a African country, now Tanzania, 3 schoolgirls began to laugh uncontrollably. Within a few months, about 2/3 of the school students had the same symptoms. And the school had to be closed because these kids were all laughing. The contagion spread and eventually affected about 1,000 people in Tanzania. They were all laughing at the same time. And then it spread to a neighboring country called Uganda. The phenom was never explained. As I look back, it might even have reached my junior high graduation. Television's laugh tracks are the invention that takes advantage of this contagion. You all remember laugh tracks. I thought they were ridiculous, but they worked. And it was a revolution in TV and TV comedy in the States. I don't know about elsewhere, but in the States 70 years ago, you were told when to laugh. It's still in use in some places. The latest about that laugh therapy I mentioned is that many hospitals now have clowns and animators on their payrolls. They bring laughter and happiness to the ill. There are several centers in the United States and South America, and probably other spots as well, that focus on this new therapy of raising moods and hopes and motivations and a stronger immunity for the ill. There's compelling evidence that HIV and cancer patients respond better to treatment if they're in a good mood or a better mood. In addition, laughter therapy workshops have become popular in schools, corporations, and other institutions on the evidence that laughter can actually prolong life and health. Also, what's interesting, researchers from Oxford University claim that they have discovered that people who make people laugh may also be getting self-medication to alleviate their own low mood or a patch of anger or desperation. I believe this has a lot of truth to it. Okay, now, the lowest form of humor, I've already mentioned it, snarky sarcasm, posing as wit. I already mentioned it. That smart aleck dig, either malign or not, prompting a laugh at someone else's expense. I consider that bottom of the barrel, because you're using somebody else as the brunt of your joke. Now, the highest form of humor, it's sheer madness and the comic connections it can make that sanity often cannot. It's from the zany, one might say mad comic mind, and for his specific zany fan base. It's my opinion, of course. But there's this. According to a report in the British Journal of Psychiatry, comedians answered a questionnaire and they scored significantly higher on 4 types of psychotic personality traits compared with the general population. This is why humorists and comedians are so often thought of as crazy and mentally off the wall, and why clowns are historically portrayed as sad and troubled. So there is a connection. There are a few other levels of humor in between, such as reformation. British neuroscientist Scott Weems, in his book Personality and Sense of Humor, says comedy and satire both try to change and reform society by means of humor. It can actually inspire activism and concern for moral principles. This sense of reforming society also gives us our most common and enduring category of humor. Anybody's guess? Political humor. You thought I forgot it, didn't you? For me, political humor presents the powerful in the most ridiculous ways and takes the power and pomposity out of them and makes us just feel good. Mark Twain's got the best comment of all. Politicians and diapers must be changed often. And for the same reason. This takes us to the realm of shock humor, or taboo, or unspeakable subjects. Subjects no one is supposed to even mention, let alone make fun of. This is essentially unwoke humor for the cynical, where you are shocked into laughter. You just aren't sure it's okay to laugh until you have a few drinks. Mark Twain also said, the funniest things are forbidden. There are sex jokes, dirty jokes, jokes about death, disease, deformity. These used to be called gallows humor. You've probably heard that expression. They are told usually in circles where the teller of the joke knows it's safe to go there. If there are no laughs, the teller quickly remembers a great Peanuts cartoon. If somebody's reaction to dark humor is, that's terrible, but I laughed, then one can laugh at dark humor. That's all it means, as far as we know. Some people just enjoy smirking at the forbidden, at the grim reaper. Does anybody here fall into that category? Oh, come on.
Come on, raise your hand.
All right, okay, good. Because if anyone here falls into that category, there's this. According to a study published in the journal Cognitive Processing, if you laugh at dark humor, it could indicate your intelligence. A team of psychologists concluded that people who appreciate dark humor may have higher IQs. They may show lower aggression and resist negative feelings better than people who turn up their noses at it.
Raise your hand.
No, I'm just prompting. Just prompting. Here, try a little test. What has 4 legs and 1 arm? A happy pit bull. See? There are certain types that can do that. Remember that joke. It's an easy one. Try it on your friends and see how stupid they are. Sources of laughter. This is a subject for another day. It too is vast, covering known players from Aristophanes to Moliere to Groucho Marx to Lucille Ball, Monty Python to Joan Rivers. There are plenty of laughs we can remember based on the insights and performances of great comedians, actors, humor writers, filmmakers, poets, artists, TV sitcoms, podcasters, playwrights, and cartoonists. You can find it everywhere, even in advertising. Frankly, we can't do without it. It's more fitting for a man to laugh at life than to lament over it. That was Seneca, a Roman writer and satirist from 2,000 years ago. And today we say the same thing. Laughing and the world laughs with you, crying you cry alone. I have to jump to my final note now. I wish I had more time to speak about this, but my final note is nonsense humor. My expression. It's something that many either love or hate. It's humor born of the absurdist movement in art and philosophy of the early 20th century. It gave us many laugh makers we didn't understand at first, but most are now considered classic comic geniuses. Here's an example of a joke and laugh with logic. It has a logic. I had dinner with a world chess champion last night, and the table had a checkered tablecloth. It took him 2 hours to pass me the salt. Okay, it's funny, but it has a logic to it. You know, we say, you get it? Meaning, did you make the connection? Okay, here's a nonsense joke that throws out the rational almost entirely. It's also another one tagged as one of the funniest jokes ever by the researchers. Man opens his front door and sees a snail on the porch. He picks up the snail and he throws it as far as he can. 3 years later, there's a knock on the door. He opens it up and sees the same snail. The snail says, "What the hell was that all about?" Okay, I'm glad you got that. I'm glad you had the nonsense to laugh at that. Nonsense is nonsense. It has a way out sense of the absurd. To get back to my first point, in sum, laughter is a mood-lifting elixir for good health. You don't need a prescription. You can't overdose. You can take it with other meds. You can share it with family and friends. And it is truly doctor recommended. Thank you for staying the course.
Well, thank you very much, Ed. Thank you. If anyone has any questions for Ed, okay, raise your hands. Right.
Thank you.
It's on?
Yeah, it's on.
Is it on? Okay. Ed, thank you so much. So I have a habit, I can't go to bed without watching a little bit of news, but then I don't want to be depressed, so I'll flick onto YouTube and watch an episode of Carol Burnett or something, so I go to bed happier. What has happened to comedy? I mean, when we grew up, most of the shows that we watched on television were funny, really funny. And, now you go on to Netflix series that are supposed to be funny. It's not the humor that used to be. What's happened?
What does happen is that humor fashions change. They really do. They change because what happens, people kind of get tired of the same tones in humor. I think you mentioned Carol Burnett, did you not? That type of humor kind of faded out in the, I guess it was 50s and 60s, maybe early 70s. And then humor got a little more shocking. They were trying to pull in a newer audience, a younger audience that was maybe more responsive to things that were a little more shocking. And that sense of shock has gotten even worse with the Zed generation today. They need something. If you've ever seen anything that's come out on cable now, the humor is even worse than it was, say, 15, 20 years ago. And it's all about bringing in new audiences, and definitely younger audiences. I mean, if you hear the jokes that younger people are telling today, they're not anything like what you would have heard 50 years ago, 40 years ago. The fashions change. Now, whether they will swing back to something more what you would consider conventional, I don't think so. I think it just, they might modulate somewhat because they know that there are a diversity of audiences. You're still there waiting to be, entertained, but what you seem to be saying is there's nothing I find funny anymore. It might change, but fashions and humor change just like anything else.
We have a question here. I can come back.
Ed, thank you. I wonder if you could comment on a very rich genre, Jewish humor, and if in your studies or life studying this, do you have any insight into the cultural or emotional underpinnings of that very rich genre?
I'm sorry, could you?
Jewish humor.
Jewish humor.
Hey, boy.
Jewish humor.
Not funny, I guess.
The legendary Jewish comedians.
Jewish humor.
Yeah. Needed an English accent.
Okay, Jewish humor. Jewish humor was extremely popular in the U.S. I can't speak about the rest of the world, but Jewish humor was extremely popular in the U.S. in the, actually, for a very long time, in the early 20th century. It reached its peak with the Borch Belt comedians that came out of New York through the Borch Belt to American TV in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Buddy Hackett, Henny Youngman, Eddie Cantor, I can name them all. And they were extremely, I can't name them all, but they were extremely influential. And they told what was considered to be American humor at the time. Now, that would be another story to tell about Borch Belt humor. I think it was called the Jewish Alps, which was an area of New York that was popularized by Jews that were, as I understand it, Jews from Eastern Europe. That's where the Borch Belt name comes from. And they were extremely influential, let me put it that way, and were often on television, on the Colgate Comedy Hour, if you remember that, Ed Sullivan Show, They were popular. In fact, nobody knows this, but I remember it. One of the first talk show hosts was not Johnny Carson, was not Jack Borch. It was a Borch belt comedian, and I can't pull up his name right now, but he was the first one to start the late night talk show. That's the best I can do with this time frame. But a good question. But it's another subject.
Ed, we have a very brief question from Angel.
The question is a comment. We as Mexicans, we like to joke a lot. And if you socialize with a Mexican group and it's for a while, and they make jokes at you, don't take it personal. Okay? They're not picking at you. That's what it means. You're part of the group.
That's very important.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
One here at the church. Did you want the? You have to have the magic stick.
Jim Gaffigan would be probably the closest thing to what we used to watch years ago, because he's essentially clean, and he's self-deprecating, that's for sure. If you need a laugh, there's an old thing on TV, still on the internet, called The Laughing Man. A guy goes on a subway and just starts chuckling. Then he starts laughing, and by the time he's through, everyone in the car is laughing, and he moves on to another car.
We have someone.
I wonder if you have any comments on slapstick humor. I think that as someone that really has an intense dislike of slapstick humor, does that make me more intelligent? Or what other comments? Because I think that's one of the things people either love or
snub their noses at. Yeah, no, I understand. I've seen what I consider to be extremely sophisticated slapstick humor. There's a character created by Molière called Scapan, and he did slapstick humor, and it was brilliant stuff. So, in a sense, there can be very clever slapstick humor, and if you like slapstick humor, look up Tricks of Scapan by Molière. But then again, I think you're probably referring to things like Benny Hill and his Three Stooges.
exactly.
I'm not particularly a big fan of Benny Hill and his Three Stooges, but you can laugh at them. I can understand people laughing at them because every once in a while, you know, after a few drinks, I can see laughing at some of that stuff. Sometimes it just depends on, as I said in the presentation, it depends on the frame.
Worse than Three Stooges, because they have some good jokes, but is like Animal House. That to me is extremely.
Okay, Animal House is a good example. I liked Animal House. I'll tell you why I like. Again, it depends on your frame of mind. That's why I mentioned frame of mind here. It depends on your frame of mind. I disliked fraternity houses so much when I was in university that when I saw it spoofed in Animal House, I got a big kick out of it. And of course, I liked John Belushi. Was it a particularly sophisticated piece of comedy? No, it wasn't. But I mean, to see John Belushi with a cigarette stuck up his nose, yeah, it cracks you up. It's a visual image that hits you by surprise. Remember what I said here. Surprise can make you laugh.
Or not.
So, right. So what makes you laugh makes you laugh. You can't describe it. It's a phenomenon that you can't dissect and say, oh, well, you really shouldn't have laughed at that because that really wasn't funny. Well, if it was funny to you, then it was funny. So slapstick is okay.
We have time for one more.
I just wondered why men find bathroom humor so much more funny than women do.
What kind of humor? What humor? Bathroom humor.
You taking that one? You taking that one? Why do?
I'm sorry, I didn't get
You
the
didn't hear it?
question.
It's okay.
Why do men find bathroom humor so funny, but women, is that right? But so much funnier than women find it.
I don't know. I think because men really don't have the same social sensitivity that women have. Honestly.
Very diplomatic. We thought it was the final question.
Just one more. It's the flip side of everything you've been saying. I had the misfortune of knowing a lady many years ago who had I don't know what you call it, a nervous laughter. She laughed at everything. It grates on you. The more time you spent with her, you realized you didn't want to be in front of her. And when I was cornered, I would have to tell her some of the saddest things I could to try to get her to stop laughing. I said, that's all well and good and it's funny, but I have to tell you, my grandmother died 3 days ago. Hysterical laughing.
Good
She can
story.
be a part of the audience next
Good
week.
story.
Great, well, thank you very much, Ed.